Hello, everyone.
Hi everyone.
And welcome back to our YouTube channel, Sisterly Conversations. Let's pick a topic. And the question says working full time versus working part time. So, Shanita, you can start first.
So this question is a bit broad, but what I would talk about in terms of working full time versus working part time, I guess some people think that you need several part time jobs, and you can do that if you want to take care of your finances and your household and so on and so forth, children, etc., etc. Um, and then, of course, people think they need a full time job as well to take care of their financials and so on. But I think it's possible to do all of that with a part time job. I know some people might think it's impossible to have one part time job, or you might have to have another partner's income coming in to help you out with that. All of that is true, but I think that it is possible though to survive on a part-time salary. I guess it depends though on the type of salary you get. To if you're being paid well part-time, I guess it could work. For me personally, I at one point I used to work full-time um, in childcare, but after a while, when I started to go to school, I had to get part time. And I was working part time for a good while before 20 migrated and was going to school full time. And then I was also still able to take care of all my bills, all my finances, um, and still have a lot left over to go out, do things, whatever I wanted, buy whatever I wanted. For me personally, I never really had a big issue with finances, but I think that is because I am a saver. Like I tend to save, and so I know how to save, and I also know how to buy, and I kind of just for some reason it always works out for me. I have never really found myself in that big financial strain. Other people might find themselves in that strain and think, I could never just work a part time job, but it worked out for me. And I never had to really, ask my parents. So actually, since I moved to Canada, I haven't asked my parents for money or anything. I've always been financially independent. Um, but yeah, but then, of course, my sister joined me, and then well, actually, before that, I was only making it on my own stuff because obviously I was married and stuff. But for a good while, I was by myself. After I got separated, I was by myself and I was doing it by myself. Then my sister joined me, and obviously, along with her joining me, came her income as well. So that worked out for us as well. But I'm just saying, nothing is wrong with working two part-time jobs or three if that's what you want to do. Just don't overdo. And nothing is wrong with working a full-time job either. Um, just do what works for you. I'll just say that. Whatever works for you. Some people can also just do a part-time job and survive. Do whatever works for you, pretty much.
For me, I like in terms of part time. I'm going to talk about nursing since that's my field, my career. In nursing, we don't really have as much time as a full timer, because it's like every day you're working and when you're off, they're still calling you to come into work. I mean, yes, you have a choice either to go or come, but I find when you are in nursing, I don't know for other jobs, but it feels as though you don't have time for yourself. So that's why a lot of nurses opt to do part time. I would have done full time here for 2 years, and to be honest, I was more stressed than anything else. I was overly tired. I was working full nights, and it was full time every night. And as I said, you will be home one day, and everybody calling on your phone. Oh, we want somebody for the next thing or whatever. So it's like you don't have any peace. You don't have any um. You can't even sleep properly without them ringing the phone or whatever. So I find like in that aspect, I tell myself that the next job that I have, I'll be trying to do some part time and see how it works for me. Plus, you get the flexibility, along with casual, but with casual get even more flexibility. But with part time, you're not really obligated. You're obligated to come to 4 shifts for 2 weeks. Um, it's making it sense, right? Right. 4 shifts for 2 weeks, right? And it could be either 12 hour or 8 hour, right? But for me personally, I would rather part time at this time. Try to get like two part time jobs so that you could have flexibility and also be able to have time for yourself, time for family, be able to de-stress and all of that. Because my career is very demanding. So yeah.
Yeah, but even in your career, I found like even though it was full time, there were times it will almost seem like part time because you used to have 1 week you will have 4 days off sometimes, and then 3 days off the next week, right? But you used to have you didn't have 4 days off, three, and then 3 days off the next week.
That was when I was in Barbados, and that was when I was on nights. When I was on nights here, I had to work 5 nights, 2 off days each week. So you will get like, okay, it will be I will work Monday, off Tuesday, off go back to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then off Saturday, Sunday, and then work from Monday straight down to Thursday, and then off day on Friday. So that's how it was like.
Oh well,
Hmm.
I guess it seemed like that to me, but I don't know. But yeah, in terms of even my part time job as a registered early childhood educator, I still had, even though it was part time, it still seemed like full time because what I find is, in terms of the hours are part time. But then what people like to do is compact your shift, even though it's part time hours, with a lot of full time work, so to speak. So it almost seems like even though you're doing part time, you still have the workload of a full time person. But everybody chooses different work types for different reasons. And I also find some people that have full time jobs tend to are not only just full time jobs, but some people just work nonstop.
Right.
Some people just don't even have an off day. They just work, 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 work.
And double,
But
double, 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 double.
right, but I find like you will find with certain people when they work those type of shifts or work continuously like that without much of a break, they still complain about not having enough money. And I always found it quite interesting to see sometimes there are people who work part-time shifts, or sometimes people work for themselves and might not work like as hard, like not sorry, my bad, because I didn't want to say that at all, because I believe that even as an entrepreneur you still work sometimes even harder.
True.
But what I'm trying to say is that you people that are entrepreneurs that build their own shifts, and it might come across like part-time too, right? Because there are some people that work for themselves and they work almost the same as a full-timer or whatever. But I think those people tend to make money and it lasts. And it always seems like they have money overflowing. Like, not that you're like super rich or anything, but the money seems to stretch, right? Like you have money to pay your bills, you have money to pay your rent, or you have money to pay, whatever, and then you still have money left over for other things. But then I find people that work full time are continuously without a break. I find these people tend to complain a lot about not having enough money, and I think it has to do with the more money you have, the more you spend. And also sometimes you tend, because you're making a certain amount of money, some people tend to go overboard with it, and buy things that on a regular basis they might not buy, right? Like they might buy things that are a little bit more expensive, and so on and so forth. And so then when that time comes, then they're like, oh well, where did the money go? Well, it just worked, and I didn't see any money at all, right? Other times too, they have to pay, a supermarket bill, pay stuff for the children, whatever, whatever. responsibilities, and before you know it, it's like the money is gone. But yet you're working non-stop.
Right.
But for me, I mean, you have to do what you have to do. But I just believe in work-life balance.
Correct.
I believe it is very important to take a breather. It's important if you're working full time, take days off. You should always be getting days off regardless. Nobody should be working from
Sunday
Saturday.
to Sunday.
Yeah, nobody should be working right through. You should always have time for a break, and then take vacation days, take sick days, whatever. Sometimes it might not be physical sickness, but just for a mental break. You just need that time to revive, rejuvenate, and go again. Because honestly, when you just go like that, eventually, if you don't take a break, your body will take a break for you.
I'm telling you.
And sometimes your body takes a break in a way you don't even want it to take a break, and you end up in the hospital or something. Like you end up taking 3 weeks or a month or more.
Or eternally.
Or that too. Which hopefully that wouldn't be the case. But unfortunately, many times that is the case. That's why people drop down at work, and they are walking. They were just walking on the street. They just dropped down. And it's always important to do checkups as well to make sure you're good. But as important as working is, take the time out for yourself, because I always say at the end of the day, when your shift is over and you go home, you have to make connections with your family, you have to make connections with your friends, you have to do stuff for you. Something that at the end of the day you can say, this is what I'm doing for me. And then not only that, but then also remember, the people that you're working for, they can also replace you in a heartbeat if something comes up, you get sick, or otherwise. They'll replace you just like that. So take the time for yourself.
Yeah, I do want to say that it is very important and very imperative that you do things for yourself. That's why I said, if you feel as though a full time is not for you, then do part time. There's flexibility here in Canada a lot. In Barbados, for nursing is slightly different because all shifts are full time. Hardly you see people working part time or whatever, unless they're doing something called sessional. And that's where do your own shifts or whatever. But many nurses back home, most of them do full time shifts. But yeah, it's very important to keep a day to yourself. I always tell the time, if my body is not feeling it, I am not getting up and doing anything, because as Shanita said, you can be replaced in a split second, and you can't ever feel as though because you're not at work, the job is not going to go on. The people in there might make you feel that way, but trust me, you can be replaced in a heartbeat. Or if you die off, guess what? They're going to say 1 minute of silence, and that's it. The job is going to continue. I have seen it time and time again. And yes, I know I'm young, me and Shanita are young, but at the end of the day, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to do mental checks, rejuvenate, and when we gotta go out, we go out. Because it's always a balance. Life is about a balance. So don't ever think for 1 minute that you cannot be replaced. You can be replaced in a second.
Right. And there was something you said just now too that I was going to talk about, but of course I can't remember it now. But yeah, that's very important. And also the thing is, nothing is wrong too in maybe at some point in your life you decide to do full time, and then another point in your life you decide to do part time, and another point of your life you could decide to do full time again, whatever. Like, life is not a straight road.
It's not.
It's a road that have a lot of turns and bends and zigzags, and you kind of just have to go with the flow and go with what works for you. Sometimes you decide to go back to school, and you might need to find like a little part-time or casual job while you're learning. Sometimes you might have a partner that can pull some of the weight, and you can pull some of the weight. And then sometimes you might decide to just do full work because that's what you want to do or whatever. But just never pressure or burden yourself, or think you have to
be there,
do it all the time.
Yeah.
Never think that you have to work a full-time shift your entire life, because you don't want that retirement comes and then you just look back and you think, what did I do in my life other than work?
Correct.
You don't have no memories, you didn't make any connections, you weren't there for your family, and then when you look back, time has gone, and now you're just at that point now everybody else is living out their lives or doing whatever, and you're there by yourself.
And then you point and then you die too.
Because that's the thing. When people hit retirement now they're so used to working that if they're not working, it's like then they just,
Dwindle away.
Yeah.
But I even remember too, I remember at one point I was just coming home and just going on the phone. This was when I was working back home. And it was like a case of being neglecting talking to my parents about my day and stuff. And one day my mother had to pull me up and say straight, don't be too tired to connect with your family. At the end of the day, your family comes first, job after, and you gotta balance it out, because if you coming home, you talking on the phone only, and then when you get off the phone, you're going to sleep. It's like, where's the connection, where's the relationship going? So my mom had to nip that in the bud, and now when I'm working, I call my mom must be 3 times during the shift or whatever, just to say, Mommy, I okay, or how you doing, and call my dad too, So can't neglect your family just because you're working. So
Yeah.
my sister always would tell me, Tony, we doing X and Y, request it off. Simple. And you do that, you make sure you get the shift covered, and if you ain't get your shift covered, they will cover it. Okay.
In some cases, everybody can't afford to just say they will cover it though, because your job is more flexible in terms of.
Yeah, but again, it has to do with what shift you do, full time or part time or casual. Yeah.
But another point I wanted to make too is also very important to invest.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to invest. And I heard somebody talked about this, and I think this is important too, because, for example, when you're returning tithes, for those that are Christians and don't go to church, you return your tithes, you give 10% to God. So if you, in your paycheck you take out 10% and you have to return that to God, right? I believe that the same way you return 10% to God, you should also pay 10% to yourself. So if you make even as little as $50 or whatever, you take your 10. Well, if you are a Christian and you go to church or whatever, but even so, this can go for all types of people, because you can take 10% out of your paycheck. As little as that might seem, it grows. And for me, if I'm returning 10%, which I do, as all of my paychecks, I return 10% back to God, and so that's 10%, and then I take out 10% out of my paycheck for myself as well to save, and with that 10%, as it grows, you can choose to invest it, right, or find ways of investing, because investing is very important. I believe that at the end of the day, when all is over and you're done working for people's companies, you at least have something to say, well, this is mine. I started this company, or it doesn't have to be nothing super grand, because you may not be rich and wealthy, but at least you might have a little something to call your own, whether it's, making food and whatever, or, maybe doing here, you reinvest that or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have something to call your own.
Right.
So I think it's very important to save that 10%, and eventually it will grow, and then you can find something to invest it in that will bring in some type of money for you in the end. Because it's always about building yourself up. So, yeah, so in terms of working full time and part time, I'm all for working full time or part time. I believe that whatever your situation is, you go with the flow. But I'm also a believer in work-life balance. I'm also a believer in taking a break, a breather, and recognizing that you have to build connections. You're not going to work for all of your life.
Correct.
At one point of your life, you're going to go through retirement and you won't be working at all. So, or you might, if you have a business, you can continue it. right? And if you have an activity like something that you could do with your hands, like planting, whatever, that's a farmer working too or whatever, but like fun work. It won't be seen as regular work. But at some point in your life, even if you work for yourself, sometimes sickness hits, sometimes all types of things hit, and you have to take a break. So it's always good to have that balance.
Yes. So, with that being said, let us know which one you prefer, full time or part time, and why, in the comment section. And please continue to like
Share
and
and subscribe.
subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.